Need for Speed Underground 2 is one of the first games I remember playing. Now, it's not at the top of my list of favorite Need for Speed titles, but if I had to pick a top 3 of my favorite entries, I'd personally slot Underground 2 in at a respectable number 3, behind Most Wanted at number 2, and Carbon being number 1. I first remember playing this game in 2007 or so, and while I had no clue what I was doing, as I was merely 4 years old at the time, this game is what eventually planted the seeds for my love for cars and motorsport as I grew and matured. Most people my age can't even remember what they had for breakfast yesterday. Meanwhile, I still have vivid images of events that happened within the first few years of my life. While coming back to this game is always a joy, getting to start a new save, drive Rachel's 350Z around, and take in that beautiful Bayview atmosphere, finishing the game is a trek that even a completionist like myself shied away from, until now. Now that the game is 20 years old, let's take a look at Underground 2 from top to bottom and see if it still holds up as one of the best entries in the franchise. Now let's talk development to start. While fans of the series generally look back on Underground 2 fondly as it improved on virtually everything its predecessor brought to the table in 2003, the game is still very much an example of Black Box getting their feet wet with this franchise. Mind you, they had only released 2 other games before this, those being the first Underground and the PlayStation 2 port of Hot Pursuit 2, the latter being the game that landed them as the lead developer moving forward. So, up until the first Need for Speed Underground's release, Need for Speed was best associated with exotic supercars, police chases and races from long, winding mountain roads to backcountry driving. By the release of Hot Pursuit 2, it was clear that the fans believed the game's European atmosphere was here to stay. However, that belief was shattered 12 months later, as Underground's release came to both critical acclaim and controversy. The longtime fans of the franchise weren't happy that this was the direction the series was taking. V12 motors were swapped with engines the size and power of your average hatchback, and the exotics gave way to tuner cars galore. The truth is, however, street racing during this time was changing. Tuner cars were starting to take pop culture by storm, with the first Fast and Furious film playing a huge role in a lot of people's interest in racing out something as simple as a Honda Civic or a Toyota Corolla. The changes that made their debut in this game are still evident in the present-day installments, with the influence being felt even outside of the racing genre. Fan interests were only heightened with the release of the first Need for Speed Underground. Street races throughout Olympic City, with your goal being to kit out your ride and use it to win races and gain a reputation throughout the city. While the game sold extremely well, just behind Need for Speed Most Wanted at 15 million copies sold, it's clear that the game had a lot of issues to iron out. From having an excess of cash at the end of the game with nothing worthwhile to spend it on, to only one garage slot without the ability to free roam, it only makes sense that a sequel would be a perfect way to fix those said issues. During development of Underground 2, EA's executive producer at the time, Chuck O'Shea, reassured fans that Underground 2 wouldn't simply be a copy-paste of the first game, and that EA Black Box were making genuine improvements from the first game, building on top of what they already created in order to make something even better. Now for the narrative. Underground 2 introduced us to a new cast of characters and a story set against the backdrop of Underground street racing. The game kicks off with a flashback to the first Underground title after the player beats Eddie and Melissa in Olympic City. The player is called after the final race by a bald man with an invitation to join his team, telling the player that he's not taking no for an answer. In defiance, the player abruptly hangs up the phone call. The player is then contacted by Samantha on their way to an after-party. She informs the player that the party is really kicking and they want to see you there. Just then, a black Hummer H2 is seen waiting in a dark alley for the player. The call is suddenly interrupted by a dazzling light from the Hummer's headlights. They blind the player while the Hummer subsequently rams the player's skyline in an effort to wreck it. A man with a scythe tattoo on his hand rolls down his window following the collision and calls to confirm that he took care of a little problem. Once the flashback scene concludes, we skip ahead 6 months later with you flying into Bayview Airport while your phone rings with a voicemail from one Rachel Teller, who is a friend of Samantha's, the girl you befriended in the first Underground. After landing, you're introduced to one of the most iconic cars in the franchise, her custom green Nissan 350Z. Once you're on the road, you're immediately instructed by Rachel to not waste your time and bring the car back to her at the garage that's plotted on your map. However, if you want some extra cash, you can also partake in 3 races that are happening at the same time. While the choice is up to you, be forewarned that Rachel will call you again telling you to go to the garage. Once you get there, she educates you about the Bayview street racing scene as well as the Underground Racing League. She also informs you of a man known as Caleb Reese, who is the leader of the Wraiths, and spoiler alert, also turns out to be the driver of the Hummer that totaled your skyline in the flashback. Rachel reveals to the player that Caleb is attempting to take control of the racing scene in Bayview by manipulating the sponsorship deals in his favor. Once her monologue concludes, she tells you that Samantha had the money from the insurance on your totaled skyline wired to your bank account, giving you the opportunity to buy your first car. You're once again given a pitiful selection of starter cars, being the Peugeot 206, Ford Focus, Toyota Corolla, Nissan 240 SX, Mazda Miata, and the Honda Civic. However, this is what I think makes a Need for Speed game good. They give you slower cars and force you to work your way up to feel the satisfaction of finally buying something faster. The Corolla is many people's first choice. While looking like one of the slowest cars on the surface, it's actually one of the best in the game, as its handling is unlike most of the other cars on the roster, and when fully upgraded, can fight with some of the fastest ones in the game. A newcomer on the scene, the player is immediately thrust into City Core, one of Bayview's 4 districts, each connected by the highway system. The most northern district is Jackson Heights, which is a residential area complete with plenty of tight turns and switchbacks. Just south is Beacon Hill. The central area, where the player currently is City Core, and the most southern part is Cole Harbor, which is divided into east and west side. This map is just part of the biggest change that Underground 2 brings to the table. While you can browse the different events, part shops, dealerships, and garages on the map, you must drive to them all in free roam. While the first Underground title had a fully built city, it would have been too small to navigate in free roam. The closed circuit events gave the impression that the city was much bigger than it actually was. Now in Underground 2, the days of front-end menu navigation to customize your ride or enter races are gone. Later entries would bring this back, but it's clear that Black Box wanted the player to get acquainted to this new world gradually and on their own terms. One thing I almost forgot to mention is the handling model. It's got this happy medium where the arcadey elements still exist, but the cars have this sway and movement that a real car would, which keeps the racing fun and engaging. Now it's time to talk about Underground 2's defining feature, and that's the customization. This game wasn't about winning races, it was about crafting a unique masterpiece. From the paint job to the smallest details, every aspect of your ride was customizable. Underground 2 wasn't just a game, it was a canvas for automotive expression. This game utilizes most of the customization options featured in its predecessor, with the ability to modify almost any part of your vehicle such as lights, bumpers, side mirrors, stereo equipment, and spinners. The star rating also comes back, giving your designed car a rating based on how it looks. However, it doesn't actually behave the way you think. Every part in this game has a point value which adds to the collective total, making up your star rating. Certain parts have a higher point value than others, which leads to the best looking builds garnering a measly 2-star rating, while a 10-star car looks like something you would find on Rate My Ride in Midnight Club Los Angeles. If the game utilized an AI to judge the design of your car, I feel that would have been a much better way to work the star rating system. Performance customization is just as comprehensive as visual tuning now, with the ability to install various performance modifications to your vehicle. New additions in Underground 2 include fine-tuning and a dyno run to adjust your vehicle's performance abilities. Circling back to the star rating once more, it plays a big role in Underground 2 as players will be offered to appear on the cover of a magazine after reaching certain star rating levels. Players will be given a phone call from Rachel to tell them the location of the cover shoot, but the player has to reach it before the photographer leaves. And this is where the game's photo mode is introduced. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe this is the first Need for Speed game to have a dedicated photo mode. Once the player arrives at the photo shoot, they can drive, show off their interior customizations, and utilize different camera angles in order to find a good shot for the magazine cover. Your cars can be customized within the career mode by visiting any of the tuning shops around Bayview: body shop, car specialties, graphics, and performance shops. In terms of the events on offer, this game brings over the events from its predecessor, including drag, drift, sprint, and circuit races, but 3 new events are now introduced, those being Street X, URL events, and SUV races now that those have been added to the game. However, there are only 3 SUVs to choose from, those being the Cadillac Escalade, Lincoln Navigator, and Hummer H2. As it pertains to the events, Street X is a closed circuit race between you and 3 AI racers where the turns are either 90 or 180 degrees. Remember earlier when I talked about how the Corolla is one of the most slept on cars in the game? Well, Street X events are where it shines. Since the tracks are virtually all corners, the Corolla can just slide through all of them like butter, leaving drastically quicker cars struggling to catch up. Now for the URL events. You're briefed by Rachel about the Underground Racing League at the start of the game, and they hold these URL events after hours at closed purpose-built racetracks around Bayview. The player is warned of heavy police presence by the other competitors during the cutscene where they break into the racetrack. While this type of event isn't necessarily what I was expecting during my first proper playthrough, I do have to say that they are still very fun to play. And virtually all critical reception for this game is positive. IGN gave Underground 2 a 9.1 out of 10, which is right up there with some of the highest ratings the series has ever seen. The game improves on everything that the first game pioneered, but that's not to say that its flaws aren't evident. Underground 2 is very much reliant on the act structure, with 5 acts standing between you and the final race against Caleb, and this makes the game start to drag on the further in you go, which is very much the reason why I never finished it as a kid. Now, yes, Most Wanted 2005 has this exact same problem, but at least you had the police to make it engaging. Bayview is absolutely cop-free throughout the game's runtime, with the only nod to their existence being the opening cutscene when you take part in your first URL race. However, this flaw doesn't detract from the fun that Underground 2 offers, as many people will put this game up there with the best in the franchise. So between when I first played this back in 2007 to now when writing this review, I had touched this game probably 8 or 9 times for a cumulative playtime of just over an hour. And it had been about 5 years from the date of this video's release since I had last played the game, and I had my reservations for it back in 2019. I went in expecting all these issues with the progression to be front and center when I loaded in, but all it took was a couple minutes of driving my stock Corolla along Highway 27 for those nostalgic feelings to come flooding back. Underground 2 is like comfort food to me. If I don't want to play the newest title, I'll just grab it off my shelf, load it up, drive the 350Z around, and just take in that beautiful Bayview atmosphere. While Need for Speed Underground 2, just like any other classic racing title, is only getting older with each passing day, it's clear that this game isn't just a relic, it's a timeless masterpiece. 2 decades later, it still holds a special place in our hearts, and its impact on gaming and pop culture is etched in the rain-soaked Bayview streets. The marks that us Golden Era Need for Speed players made on these streets will stay forever until the new generation of racing fans paves over them. While the current state of the franchise may not be the brightest, Underground 2 is a reminder of what we could get if the developers had extra time to be more creative and develop a true masterpiece. Until then, whenever we're down or in the mood for some gaming, it goes without saying that Bayview will always be calling our names. So right now I want to take this time to answer the latest batch of fan questions that I have, and if you guys want the opportunity to ask me a question that I can put at the end of videos like this, you can do so by joining the channel as a member. Like I said, I'm now a full YouTube partner, monetization, ad revenue, all that good stuff. And channel memberships was one of the first thing I got, and I haven't gotten many people to subscribe to it. So if you are interested, there's perks for certain subscriptions. Each different tiers offers different stuff. For just 99 cents, you'll be able to ask me questions to put at the end of the video, and you do get access to 24 hours early access to new videos as well. So with that said, let's answer the first question. So favorite go-to fast food? Now this isn't exactly fast food, but Panera Bread Bowl mac and cheese. There's like so many things other people my age have done that I haven't when it comes to fast food. I've started a college kid starter pack checklist basically, and just recently I've checked off try Panera for the first time and try Starbucks for the first time, and I've fallen in love with those. I still have yet to try Chipotle though. I feel like I'll just go in, look at the line, and just be like, what the fuck do I do? You know, like my whole brain will just shut off. Current state on the New England Patriots. Bill Belichick has left, and I have never felt such uncertainty and anxiety about the future of football since Tom Brady's departure. From the internal dysfunction to Coach Belichick's future, it's definitely a weird time to be a Patriots fan, but things are looking up though. $70 million in cap room, opening for a GM and a head coach, 3rd overall draft pick. Hopefully we can make the right moves and get back to winning ways soon, but I'll definitely miss Coach Belichick.